I'm announcing that the Department of Labor is developing an emergency rule to require all employers with 100 or more employees that together employ over 80 million workers to ensure their workforces are fully vaccinated. Get vaccinated.
Okay, because you said so, should we also let the king assault our wives on our wedding night because he said so? Get the f*** out of here. Now to the question. Should you obey Emperor Biden's new mandate? Let's find out. But first, as the people that run Biden had him announce their new mandate, what meant a lot to most Americans was how well he read off the teleprompter the whole time. He honestly did much better than usual, and I think that deserves to be acknowledged. And the rest of his speech was really eaten up by the few sheep that are left grazing upon this great leader's words. But the thing that's not faring well with all the lions in America is the whole part of Biden pretending he's got the tyrannical authority to tell people what to do with their bodies. These lions inconveniently have things called God-given liberties, freedom, sovereignty, and what's that thing called? The Constitution, which ironically protects them really well from this president. But JP, he said we have to do this. Cool, keep eating. Your wool will be ready in the fall. But for now, I'm talking to the lions, not you. But even for the lions, wouldn't it be a good idea for us to violate our free will and mindlessly follow this demented puppet's guidance on our health and freedom? I mean, look at what a beautiful disaster Biden created in Afghanistan. Wouldn't you like his leadership and track record to do the same for your health and freedom? You could be your own Afghanistan if you listen to him. But at least Biden's willing to praise the Taliban on the week of 9/11, even though they're a murderous regime currently holding Americans hostage. Not only does that make him seem trustworthy, but it kind of makes you optimistic that he'd be willing to celebrate your enslavement to his authority if you give him your freedoms. On that note, I will say, Biden's tyranny is synonymous with honesty. I remember back in July when his press secretary said they would not be instituting these mandates. But when they said that back then, that's honestly what they wanted us to believe. Deception for our own protection, right? JP, you're nuts! He's violating our freedoms for our own good. It's funny how abusers say the same thing to their victims in order to minimize how much resistance they encounter in violating their victims. Right, Joe?
This is not about freedom or personal choice. It's about protecting yourself and those around you.
Sheep probably just heard a message of protection. Lions heard a message of abuse. So if you do the math, there's two possibilities why Biden would be trying to violate your freedom. One is he's an abuser because he's acting out the exact behavior of an abuser. But this scenario is definitely not likely. And the other possibility is like why ever else good people would want to violate other people's freedoms. It's like, there's probably a lot of good reasons why people would want to violate other people in a way that's beneficial. Someone's just got to think of them. I remember when Benjamin Franklin said, "Those who give up their freedom for safety deserve neither." And Biden said, "This is not about freedom. This is for your safety." Those are two very different perspectives. But Benjamin Franklin was a strong advocate for the Constitution, and Biden disregards it altogether. So, well, he's mandating that people get this shot whether they want it or not. So what can we do? Well, that's a great question. If you're a sheep, go ahead and keep grazing on obedience in the corral of your comfort zone. But if you're a lion, you might want to consider the words of Martin Luther King Jr. One has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. And that's what the lions are doing. So far, the governors of these states have said they will not obey Biden's tyrannical, unconstitutional mandates. What if you're a business owner with more than 100 employees? What can you do?
All right. Today, Joe Biden announced he was going to use the full force of the federal government to mandate that all companies with 100 plus employees force their workers to be vaccinated, or subject them to weekly tests for COVID-19. I just got off the phone with our lawyers, and I just want to reiterate something that I already said today on Twitter. No, the Daily Wire does have more than 100 employees, but we won't be enforcing Joe Biden's unconstitutional and tyrannical vaccine mandate.
Oh, that's what you can do. Do what's right by disobeying. But I'd be one of the only ones disobeying based on what the guy trying to implement the mandates is telling me most people want them. It's probably not what you think. Take a look at the video of Biden announcing his exciting new mandates and notice the impressive like versus dislike ratio. Similar to Martin Luther King, Gandhi once said, "Civil disobedience becomes a sacred duty when the state becomes lawless or corrupt." I wonder why Martin Luther King and Gandhi would say disobedience is our duty. Maybe they're suggesting that you can't obey your way out of tyranny and that you have to disobey your way out of tyranny. Maybe that's how you stop the tyrannical few from controlling the many. I guess if you're not under a trance of fear, that kind of makes sense. After all, both Martin Luther King and Gandhi used disobedience to crumble the control that unjust segregating forces had over society in their days that created two classes of citizens. Oh, and probably just coincidentally, Biden's hand of tyranny is trying to impose unjust segregation over society to create two classes of citizens. Watch.
We're going to protect vaccinated workers from unvaccinated coworkers.
And watch this, too.
This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
Pandemic of the unvaccinated. Certainly is if you talk to a scientist. But if you talk to a scientist who practices science, you'll find it's not true. And it's beautiful how Biden's trying to create unity by creating division, by trying to get you to look at the unvaccinated as second-class citizens. Have we seen this before? Oh yeah, the Nazis called Jews licensed varmints to help encourage weak-minded people to be willing to do inhumane things to Jews. Now, I really can't stress enough that the people that run Biden are perfectly executing the first 6 steps of genocide. Will they get to all 10? They will if you let them, and they won't if you don't let them. The cool thing is, which is kind of scary, it's up to you. What else did the most popular president in history with one of the worst approval ratings in history have to say?
We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin.
Aw, Joe, your patience is wearing thin, and you're trying to use fear to intimidate us while you're wearing soiled Depends, you tyrant? Well, the good news is what's not wearing thin is the Second Amendment. So your patience means f*** all to lions. So, with all the exciting revelations that come with Biden's new mandate announcement, should you comply? That depends on if you're a lion or a sheep. If you're a sheep, enjoy the day on your green pastures of peaceful slavery. But for the lions, it's time to stand up, disobey the tyrants, and uphold your freedoms. Because lions know freedom is what makes life worth living. And I promise you this, there's more of us than you think. It's time, lions. One more thing, my friend. I will not comply with anything that violates human freedom. I promise you that, and I am proud of that. That's why I had my team just make up a new shirt, I Will Not Comply. And if you'd like to boldly represent and spread the message of Martin Luther King and Gandhi, you can be one of the first to get your I Will Not Comply shirts in my shop now at awakenwithjp.com. I'm proud to be on Team Freedom with you.